All right, welcome back to MH Blackwell, the personal YouTube account for Fanon International Boxing. In this video, we are going to talk about the reaction of Umar Johnson to police brutality, but specifically in the context of Kamala Harris, and also Candace Owens responding to the assassination of Sonya Massey, but explaining exactly why she does not believe that the police brutality in this particular circumstance, is racism. So, is it racism or is it not racism when you have a police officer commit violence against a black person? And does it matter? And what should we do about it? But before I give you my particular opinion on it, listen to what Umar has to say. Listen to what Candace Owens has to say, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts and tell you what I see in this.
She made a career locking up black people. This is the same woman who went on international television, Art, let me remind you, about a year or two ago and said America is not a racist country. You want me to go vote for a so-called black woman who went on international television and told the world that America is not a racist country. She spit in the face of the family of Trayvon Martin. She spit in the face of the family of Breonna Taylor. She spit in the face of the family of Michael Brown, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Amir Locke, Dante. We can go on and on. Tamir Rice, all the Africans murdered by police, which are state-sanctioned executions. Let us be clear. The police are agents of the state. When the police kills a black person, that is a state-sponsored execution. And in response to all this racism, the execution of George Floyd, this part-time black woman says America is not racist. And when I say part-time, Art, I'm not poking fun at her because she's being mixed race. I want to be clear. I'm poking fun at her because she can rarely be found speaking up for black people.
Wow. Okay, so that there is Umar Johnson. Let's listen to a very, very, very different take by Candace Owens.
Of course, as I have said since the beginning of time, there are mistakes that police officers are human beings. There are mistakes that happen, and the idea that now you're going to use this situation and all the usual suspects are already involved, we know that Attorney Crump is already involved, to then try to make black Americans believe that this happened simply because she was black is pointedly ridiculous. So I am saying to black Americans today, do not take this bait. Yes, what happened in this situation, I think he's going to have a very hard time, this officer, saying that he absolutely felt so threatened by boiling water that the only solution was for him to mindfully say, I'm going to shoot you in the face, and that's what he did. I think that's going to be a very steep hill to climb.
Steep hill for sure. Yeah, so that's what we deal with. That's what we deal with whenever one of these issues come up. You have both sides of the spectrum. You have Dr. Umar, saying that this is a state-sponsored execution. And you have Candace Owens saying, no, race was not the motivating factor in this. And this is just a police officer that made a mistake. And look, don't take the bait. Don't take the bait to let the usual rebel rousers like Umar Johnson talk to you and make you believe that this is racially motivated. Now, Umar Johnson is basically saying the same thing about Candace Owens, even though he was talking about specifically about Kamala Harris and saying, look, don't pay attention to these bedwenches and these sellouts and these people that do not represent black people. This was a state-sponsored execution, And this is something that we need to be very, very upset about because it concerns us specifically about race. And race is one of the critical reasons why this happened, right? So where do you go with this? And this is somewhere for people that come from the boxing channel, we deal with this issue a lot of times where you have polar opposite opinions. You have polar opposite opinions about what the root cause of something is. And one team takes it over here, the other team takes it over there. Now, fortunately enough, man, I think that we have an older gentleman that goes by the name of Neely Fuller Jr., who's given a lot of insight on how to think about these things. Here's the problem. From the point of view of Candace Owens has a point in that we don't know what motivated that particular officer at that moment to do that particular thing. We don't know it. So just look at Candace Owens as looking at every individual circumstance, every particular interaction in and of itself without really thinking about any type of societal overtones or societal patterns, but just evaluate that situation. There's a real strength to that because it's very hard to call somebody a racist unless they specifically say that that's why I did it. So the particular police officer is not going to say that's why I shot him. So if you ever corner this guy, you got to have a conversation with him. He's going to point to all kind of different reasons why he did it and completely ignore or refuse to acknowledge any animosities that he may have towards black people that are known to him or may not be known to him. Because some of these reactions can be knee-jerk reactions to sentiments that you don't have at the forefront of your conscious mind. Now, Umar Johnson has a very solid point that, look, this stuff happens too much. And he ran off a bunch of names of black people that had been killed by police officers in similar fashions where it looked like they had no regard or it was just not necessary. George Floyd, Tamir Rice, and Sonya Massey are like absolutely positively the case, within the black community. So what do? This is my solution. You look at it from both ways because look, man, you're better safe than sorry looking at it her way, and you're better safe than sorry looking at it Umar Johnson's way, as it affects what you do in your day-to-day life or what your children do in their day-to-day life. Because all this pontificating really doesn't mean anything unless you can point to something practical that it's going to cause you to do in your life. Like what? How do you interact as a black person with a police officer? If you accept what Umar Johnson says is true and say, hey, there is a great pattern of mistreatment of black people by police officers, and police officers do work for the state, and this has been throughout the history of black people in America, look, you would be better off, assuming that that's the case, in the way that you behave and the way that you approach getting justice for Sonya Massey. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge that Candace Owens has a point where when you're talking about specifically any particular incident and when you're accusing somebody of doing something for racial motivation, it's going to be very tough for you to prove that because you can't read the mind of that individual. So what do? You do what Neely Fuller Jr. says, one of the best minds on the subject. He said, look, you never call the guy racist or accuse a guy or the policeman of being racist because it's very, very hard for you to win that argument. And people like Candace Owens are going to be able to box you in because you can't read that guy's mind and they know you can't read that guy's mind. So the apologists are going to be all on top of you. But so what do? You just say, hey, man, I'm just going to assume it was. I don't know for sure that these police officers were racially motivated to kill this woman. But let me tell you, as far as it affects me and what I'm going to do in my life, when I see a police officer, when I engage with a police officer, I'm going to assume that that was the feeling of that officer. And it may be the feeling of the officer that I'm talking to next, because this pattern, as established by Umar Johnson, cannot be denied. So I am going to behave as if this pattern is real, to avoid myself being put in a situation where where the individual circumstance, the circumstance at the moment, puts me in the same situation as Tamir Rice, George Floyd, Sonya Massey, and countless other people. So you get kind of stuck. I don't think that Umar Johnson's approach to it is saying that is really practical or efficient in the day-to-day life that you live, but the overall understanding of the truth that he acknowledged, that he brought to light with the historical facts, you can't ignore. As far as the conversation with Candace Owens, I think, is being very, very honest in the way that she looked at that particular circumstance and saying, hey, man, it may not just be race. But that's not a safe bet for me to take when I'm dealing with police officers like we're all just buddy, chummy. It doesn't make a difference to me if he has a bad day or if he just doesn't like black people. Doesn't make a difference to me because both may be true. He may have a bad day and he doesn't like black people. But if I just act like, hey, man, I'm a black person, I'm at risk here, treat him like a dog that may bite me, hey, man, I decrease my chances of getting bit. So keeping your eyes open, understanding what's going on, understanding the historical context, understanding the individual thing that's going on right now in front of your face, they're both important. So in my opinion, both Umar Johnson and Candace Owens have important voices and important opinions that we need to take into consideration when we analyze any particular popular issue, popularly spoken. I'm not like everybody's happy about it, but something that's being spoken about a lot in the media, that we need to acknowledge both of these things in our mindset, but only doing so that we know what we're going to actually do about it in our life. How are we going to protect our sons, protect our daughters, protect ourselves, protect our community in an environment where we know something exists under the behind the scenes or underneath people's spoken intentions, and yet at the same time be able to continue and do our work and get along with other people and not accuse people of things that we don't know for sure that they're guilty of. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you for joining, subscribing to the channel. Again, hit that subscribe button, share with other people. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.